You are not lost. You are simply too full. Full of noise. Full of habits. Full of expectations that were never yours to begin with. Every man speaks of change when the year begins. New plans. New goals. New self. But how can anything new enter? If you are still carrying the same unexamined weight from 10 years ago, the world won't tell you this, but I will. Your mind is cluttered. Your body is tired. Your soul is suffocating under the heaviness of your own inertia. And that's why the first step is not motion. It's not ambition. It's not hustle. It's retreat. Not a vacation. Not escapism. A deliberate retreat into yourself. A moment of stillness. To ask a simple but brutal question. What am I really looking for in this life? And more than that, where exactly am I standing right now? Because you cannot chart a path forward if you have no idea where you are. Look around. No, really look. What is surrounding you? What kind of people? What kind of energy? What kind of silence? You see, many men think they're free because they make choices, but most of those choices are reactions. Reflexes wired by past wounds, old programs, ancestral fears. What you call your way of living might be nothing more than a pattern. Look, a conceptual prison disguised as personality. And you don't escape a prison by rearranging the furniture. You escape by seeing the bars for what they are. By realizing the structure is inside of you. That's why the Shaolin path never begins with addition. It begins with subtraction. Not what should I do, but what must I release? Your life feels stuck, not because it lacks progress, but because it lacks space. There is no room for change to enter. When your soul is overgrown with stale identity, you keep feeding the same stories, the same beliefs, the same silent vows you made in childhood, and still you wonder why nothing new happens. This is your compass, not what you want, but what you tolerate. Now look inward. How do you feel about the last year of your life? Did you grow? Did you shrink? Did you face the mirror or avoid it? Before you reach forward, you must recognize your present. Your status quo is not a neutral space. It is the starting line of your transformation or your decay. Before you sail, you must know where you dock. Before you begin, you must admit where you are stuck. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not too old, but you are carrying too much. And until you are willing to let go, you will keep walking in circles, dragging your own past like chains through the mud. You see, many men think they're free because they make choices, but most of those choices are reactions. Reflexes wired by past wounds, old programs, ancestral fears. What you call your way of living might be nothing more than a pattern. Look, a conceptual prison disguised as personality. And you don't escape a prison by rearranging the furniture. You escape by seeing the bars for what they are. By realizing the structure is inside of you. That's why the Shaolin path never begins with addition. It begins with subtraction. Not what should I do, but what must I release? Your life feels stuck, not because it lacks progress, but because it lacks space. There is no room for change to enter. When your soul is overgrown with stale identity, you keep feeding the same stories, the same beliefs, the same silent vows you made in childhood, and still you wonder why nothing new happens. Physical practice is not about appearance. It's about movement. It's about releasing what's rigid, because what is rigid is already dying. Spiritual practice is not about mysticism. It's about clearing the fog, letting your mind breathe without the weight of yesterday's thoughts. Because when your inner world is cluttered, you don't need more motivation. You need purging. You must learn the art of letting go. And letting go is not weakness. It's not passivity. It is power. The kind of power that frees your hands to finally build something new. The more you let go, the more life flows. It's not magic, it's law. Let go, or be dragged. Let's be honest, you already knew what needed to go. The question has never been clarity. The question has always been, can I do this alone? Sometimes, no. Sometimes the weight is too deep. It lives under your skin, in your posture, in the tone of your voice when you say, I'm fine. Some chains are buried, camouflaged as your personality, embedded in the way you breathe. That's why even the strong break, even the focused stall, even the wise reach walls they can't break alone. This is where support enters. A guide, a brother, a discipline, sometimes a stranger holding a mirror at the right angle. You don't always need advice. You need someone who has walked deeper, someone who didn't flinch when darkness came, because only those who descended into themselves can hold space for your descent too. That's why the Shaolin temple has walls. not to keep the world out, but to keep the focus in. Because stillness is not found by accident. Stillness is forged. You must create the space. You must guard the fire. You must retreat long enough for the noise to settle, so that finally, you can hear yourself. You think the world needs a louder version of you? It doesn't. It needs a clearer version of you. A man who can hear when to act, and when to wait. A man who knows what is his, and what is baggage inherited from people who never knew peace. This is how the rebuilding begins. With silence, with truth, with fire, and with the courage to admit, I cannot do this the old way anymore. You will not rise because you want to. You will rise because you've suffered enough staying the same. Intention is not enough. Hope is not enough. Discipline without clarity is just glorified punishment. That's why monks don't just train hard. They train with direction. They wake up with ritual. They sit in stillness. They stretch their muscles to their limits. They face discomfort, not to impress the world, but to remove what doesn't belong. You cannot carve a statue with your eyes closed. You must see the excess stone, the fear, the laziness, the need for praise, the attachments disguised as identity. All of it must burn. And what remains after the fire is the man you were meant to become. But let's be clear. Letting go is not a mindset, it's a skill. Some men don't release what hurts them because they simply don't know how. No one ever taught them. There was no class in school on surrender. No father showed them how to drop what no longer serves. So they cling to bitterness, to fantasies, to false identities, to dreams that were never theirs. Letting go takes practice, and sometimes it takes guidance. Not from someone who speaks louder, but from someone who listens deeper. You think strength is pushing through? That's half the truth. Real strength is knowing when to release, to stop carrying what makes your soul tired, even when it looks noble on the outside. Because strength that doesn't know rest eventually becomes weakness in disguise. And that's not the warrior path. A man's journey begins not when he fights, but when he listens, when he watches, when he pauses long enough to hear. This is not who I want to be anymore. You want peace? Then stop chasing highs, and stop fearing the lows. You say you want to be stable, but your mood rises and falls with every win, every loss, every message left unread. You smile when praised, and collapse when ignored. That's not strength. That's emotional slavery. The man who is truly free is not the richest, not the loudest, not the most respected. He is the man who cannot be shaken. The Shaolin speak of balance not as a theory, but as a way of walking through fire without being burned. Imagine this. Someone gives you a gift. It's beautiful, rare, expensive. Before you'd light up, jump. Let that moment define your mood for the week. Now, you smile. You're grateful. But inside, you remain still. Another day someone disappoints you, breaks a promise, says something cruel. Before you'd burn, you'd rage, you'd spiral. Now, you breathe, and you remain still. That's balance. That's control. That's freedom. Stability is not the absence of emotion. It's the ability to hold emotion without being possessed by it. It's not that you don't feel. You just don't collapse. And the only way to reach this? Practice. Relentless, boring daily practice. Because life is never just light. There is no joy without suffering. No strength without fatigue. No success without failure. Everything you cling to will fade. So build yourself not on what changes, but on what endures. Your breath, your discipline, your values, your spirit. This is the ground you must learn to stand on. Every man has a dark side, and if he denies it, it controls him. You think peace means weakness? You think softness is safety? No. True peace is only possible when you have seen the darkness in yourself and chosen not to let it rule you. The warrior inside you is real. You felt it in anger, in fear, in those moments where life threatened what you loved most. That fire you felt, that wasn't rage, that was power. But power without mastery is just violence. The Shaolin warrior monk does not fight because he loves war. He fights because he has trained to master his aggression. He is not peaceful because he is harmless. He is peaceful because he is dangerous and chooses not to act. Let that sink in. You don't have to show your teeth to prove you have them, but you must sharpen them. You must train. You must develop your body, not for vanity, but so your spirit has a vessel it can rely on. You want freedom? Then become capable. Because the world does not care about your good intentions. It respects preparation. It fears resolve. You are not meant to be a tamed version of yourself. You are meant to be a warrior in control. Disciplined, decisive, dangerous, but only when necessary. This is not about fighting. It's about presence. A kind of presence that walks into the room and changes the temperature without saying a word. You don't get that by reading quotes. You get that by training, sweating, failing, repeating, day after day, until the fire inside of you is refined, not suppressed. Most men are tired, not because they do too much, but because they do too many things without intention. Every word spoken without purpose drains you. Every action done just to please depletes you. Every hour lived on autopilot kills you. And eventually, you wake up not knowing who you are, because you've never chosen who you want to be. Discipline is not punishment, it's alignment. You wake up early not to impress anyone, but to remind yourself, I decide how my day begins. You train not just to look better, but because your body is the altar where your spirit lives. You say no to distractions, because your life has weight, and you no longer allow that weight to be wasted. You don't live for mood, you live by mission. This is the secret of every warrior, every monk, every man who left a mark. They didn't wait to feel ready. They acted with intention, even when the heart whispered doubt. What are you doing right now that doesn't matter? That doesn't align with the man you claim you want to become? Delete it. Walk away. Burn it. Because every second you spend in confusion is a second stolen from your legacy. And the man you were called to be, he doesn't have time to waste. He doesn't do things because the world tells him to. He acts because he knows who he is. Let's talk about fear. Not the kind that keeps you from touching fire, but the kind that keeps you from living. You fear the unknown. You fear failing. You fear being judged. But what you really fear is becoming powerful and not knowing okay phase or calm yourself. You've convinced yourself that comfort is safety, but it's not. It's sedation, a slow death disguised as peace. And the worst part? You are not running from danger. You are running from the version of you that would have already made it. Fear is not your enemy. It's just a compass pointing to the edge of your growth. If you never feel fear, you're not growing, you're coasting. And if you always avoid it, you will build a life so small that nothing meaningful can fit inside it. The warrior knows this. The monk embraces this. He steps forward not because he doesn't feel fear, but because he has trained himself to act despite it. You don't conquer fear by thinking. You conquer it by moving, by facing it again and again and again, until one day, the thing that used to paralyze you becomes the path that built you. So next time fear knocks, don't hide. Open the door, look it in the eye, and say, I know why you're here. Let's go. Because fear will never leave, but it can walk behind you if you stop letting it drive. You are not here by accident. Look around. The chaos, the noise, the hunger for truth. This world needs men who remember who they are. Not men who perform, not men who follow, but men who are rooted, who walk with weight, speak with clarity, and love with fire. Your presence must mean something. Stop asking, what do I want from life? Start asking, what does life want from me? Because if you think you were born just to chase your own comfort, you've already missed the call. You were sent here with something, a spark, a code, a gift that only becomes real when you decide to offer it. So offer it. Speak the truth. Stand when others sit. Build when others destroy. Heal when others numb. Lead when others run. Because the man who does not express his soul slowly becomes a ghost, alive but not truly living. Let this be your reminder. You are the bridge between heaven and earth, the hands that bring the invisible into form. A vision means nothing if you don't bring it down into the soil, into your body, into action. Stop waiting for permission. You already have the call. The only question is, will you answer it? In a world full of men who quit, be the one who stays. Stay when it gets dark. Stay when the noise gets loud. Stay when fear tries to convince you to run. Because most will fold. Most will escape into distraction. Most will blame. But you've seen too much to pretend now. You felt the fire, and you didn't flinch. You don't move by emotion. You move by intention. You don't chase comfort. You create meaning. You don't break, because you were never built to be fragile. You were forged in silence, sharpened in solitude, prepared for a battle no one else sees. Because the warrior knows, some victories are invisible. Everything you've lived until now was preparation. The pain, the delays, the betrayals, the lessons. It wasn't punishment, it was shaping. Now you have one task: be light in the chaos, Be structure in the storm. Be present where others disappear. Not to be admired, not to dominate, but to lead, to serve, to anchor a new kind of manhood, one that is unshakable, not because he's loud, but because he's grounded. Let this be the first day of the rest of your life. No more waiting, no more hiding, no more blaming the world. Step forward, with your fear, with your flaws, with your truth. The world is starving for awake men, for grounded men, for men who choose to carry weight instead of running from it. Wake up, the fire is already in you, and the world is waiting.